In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace this storm door. And we're going to do it right now. So this whole area is a little messed up. Just over the years, you can see this has worn. First of all, the door will close, but not properly, obviously. And you have a lot of damage here, like this is metal. So you have some on the backside here too. The piston's missing, this is all worn. It's basically just reached the end of its life, so we're gonna replace it. So first thing I'm gonna do is get this door out of here. I'm going to start by removing this right here, anything that's attached to the door, like the piston, if that was still attached. But this right here, just take the screws out. And right here, use my hammer. There's some screws going into the trim, so I'm going to remove all those all the way down. Now I can close the door, and you can see these screws right here. I'll remove these all the way down. I'm just going to lean up against this door so it doesn't fall. Now I should be able to remove the door. Now I can remove all the screws out of this piece right here. And now I can remove the rain cap. There's 2 screws in this one. And I can remove any of the leftover pieces of hardware, like this catch right here. And then this leftover piece of hardware for the door closer. It's gonna probably be beneficial to add an extension here. And that way you can go straight with it. See if it worked. These screws are typically pretty long. Once you remove your old storm door, you should be good to install your new one, as long as everything is all set. For me, I'm jumping ahead in the video because I had to do a whole bunch of work to get to this point where I'm ready to install the storm door. I had some rotted trim, and when I took that off, I noticed that the door wasn't even secured, so I secured it. I also noticed there was no or barely any insulation in it, so I added some insulation, put new trim on, and replaced the bottom kickboard of this door. So now we're good, and if you wanted to see all that stuff, I didn't feel like I should include it in this video, but I will leave a link in the description of this video over to where you can see it if you want. But for this video, let's just put this new door in. So before we get ready to mount this door, I want to take some measurements and make sure it's going to work. Let's say you have a 32-inch door like me. Your door opening from brick molding to brick molding or trim to trim, whatever you might have, can be a 1/4 inch less or 3/8 more than the actual door measurement. So either 31 3/4 up to 32 3/8. Let's see what we have here. I'll measure right in the middle. And what I have is 32 1/4. So that is in between the parameters. And then I measure down here just to be sure. That is 32 3/8. So that's right at the edge. And then up here, 32 1/4. So I am good. I'm on the larger side of the parameters, which means I am probably gonna have to do a shim over here on the hinge side. And by the way, speaking of the hinge side, what I did was I added some screws right here just to be sure that this is gonna be solid and the door doesn't sag over time. I went all the way up and down and added those because I want it to be solid. So if you're not sure, you might wanna just add those. And those are gonna be hidden by the frame of the storm door too. Another thing you want to check is the height. This is an 80-inch door, so you want the opening to be between 80 inches and 81 inches. And if I take a look right here, between the brick molding and the bottom threshold, I have 80 5/8. And then I'll check the other side, and that is about the same, 80 5/8. So I have my storm door laid out on my sawhorses, nice and flat like this. And this will work for a left hand and a right hand swing. This one is an Andersen 400 series, but it should be pretty similar for other brands as well. So I'm gonna open this box. They actually have a line right here, so you cut towards the top. And we'll cut it all the way around and open it up, see what we got. Carefully, because there is a door in there. You can flip this over. Before I lose this stuff, I'll take this all out. This is the door handle, the door closer, or piston. And these are just some brackets to help you with your installation. I'll show you how to use those, but I'll put this stuff aside. This out before it falls. And this, any of this stuff. It's loose. And of course, the instructions. They have definitely improved these instructions, so if you want to follow them, you can. But I'm going to try and give you everything you need to know in this video. My hinge side is this one right here. I think it just makes sense to have the handle right here, have it open this way. So this is going to be the hinge side, but it does have to be shimmed out anywhere from 1/8 to 3/8 larger than the door size. Like I said, 32. Mine's 32 1/4. So I am going to use the shim that they provide along with the little double-sided tape. I'm going to take these, peel off one side, and put it just like that. And there's 4 of them. So I'll just space them even, put one at the bottom. And we're going to be putting screws right through this, so that's really what's going to be holding it in place. This is just to hold it there temporarily. Then we can peel off the other part. That's sticky. Same thing with all of them. For whatever reason, this red piece is really stuck on there. So whatever trim you have, you're gonna want this to go down to the bottom of the threshold and even with this trim on the outside. Like that. Just stick it in place. There's a gap at the top, and that's totally fine. One thing to keep in mind when you choose your door swing, if you want it to open on the same side that the doorknob is for the exterior door, there could be interference between this doorknob and the door handle for the storm door. So on the storm door, measuring down to the threshold, the center of the door handle is gonna be at 40.5 inches. So I'm clear with mine, but if yours ends up being here, you're gonna want to change something, whether it's bumping this out, if you don't have 2.5 inches, because that's the clearance you need from the back of the door, which I would not have. My door would be about right here. So I would either have to, like I said, bump it out here, or change the door swing, or do something to not have those interfere. That's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this. So I have my door laying on its side right here on the latch side. So this is the hinge side. This is the front of the door. This is the back of the door. This has a screen. You pull this glass down and a screen comes out, which is nice. And what we're gonna do is install the hinge. But first I need to take off this little screw right here and this screw right here, the two in the middle. You can just use an extension, by the way. Good. So they do provide a drill bit that you're gonna need for this step, and you're gonna use 1-inch unpainted screws. And you're gonna grab your hinge and just set it there like this so you understand how it gets installed. Again, this is the face. This is where you would attach to the brick molding or whatever trim you have, and it's gonna swing like this. So now you want to take this hinge right here, the second one from the bottom, and that is going to line up with the screw you took out here. And you're going to want to install one of these screws. So this is going to hang down this way, so that's fine. And then you just want to make sure all your hinges are not like this, basically. So you want to pull them all up, make sure they sit in that groove, and you work your way down. This one is all set, and then this one, get that to sit right there, and then this is going to be passed on the top about 3/16 of an inch. So that's fine like that. And now we're going to attach all these hinges. So I'm going to hold this just like that, use the drill bit, to basically just get through the metal. You can go into the wood a little bit if you want. I'm not going to go too far. I want these screws to get a nice hold on them. And I can attach these screws and work my way down. Don't forget about this one, like I did. I have my door back up on the sawhorses, and it's hanging over so that I can just turn this hinge, and then we're going to attach this right here. I want to center it in the door. Just come this way a little bit. I'll just give it a little tap just to center it. Check the other side. A little bit more. Good. Now I just want to make sure this is all the way up. Now I'm going to take my drill bit, as long as this is centered and tight to the bottom of the door, and I'm going to put a pilot hole right here just to get through the metal, right at the bottom of this slot. That way I can adjust this down if I need to. Just got through the metal there. Same thing on the other side. Definitely don't go through the door. And then you can take the 1/2-inch painted head screws from that same bag that you used to attach the hinge and just run them in here. So on the door sweep right here, you're going to want to install this sweep fin. You can see this little triangle piece right here. That's where it attaches into this groove. And you just slide it in like this all the way. So this can be a little tricky, this part. I'm just going to slide this back so you can see. You basically want to crimp this. So I'm going to put some needle nose pliers in just like this and crimp that. So extend that more, and then like this, and squeeze nice and hard. You just want to make sure that's not going to move so the fin stays in there. And do the same thing on the other side. Might mess it up a little bit, but you really have to squeeze that tight. But that's good. Now I'm going to cut this fin off even with the door. I'm going to use a utility knife, but you can also use scissors. Just try and make a straight cut. It moves a little bit. That's why I'm saying you really got to tighten that down. So now I'm going to install these little helpers. I'm going to go about 6 inches up, approximately. And this one goes right here. And then this one, I actually have to loosen this screw. And it goes like this, tight like that, and then I'll just tighten that back up just a little bit. So on the hinge side, since this is a right or a left swing door, the handle could go here. So they have this slot. You're gonna want to fill that with this piece. And look at this, Emco. This is an Emco door. Andersen, Emco, must be the same thing. Did not know that. So that's gonna cover this. You're gonna wanna leave the styrofoam in there. Make sure it's sitting flat. I'm gonna use the drill bit, just get through the metal again. Take these color match screws. These are in the door handle kit along with this. So here's a couple things that aren't mentioned in the instructions that are kind of important. So number one, I like to check this right here, the hinge side, to see if this is plumb. And this one is pretty good. It could stand to go out just a little bit, but it's pretty good. So I'm comfortable with being able to hold the hinge tight to this brick molding and know that the door is going to be plumb, but I'm going to double check it. So ideally you would screw those screws tight to this, and that would secure it a lot better. But you can make it plumb and then put screws in the front here and then not tighten these up so much. Or if you wanted to rip a shim by hand to make it absolutely perfect, that's cool. You can do that. Another thing to consider is if you, say, have a really old house or your brick molding or your trim is really funky, if this side is different than this side, then you might have a problem. Let's say this side is like this and the other side is like this, basically like this. Then when this door closes on the jamb side, you're gonna have it being held out a ways here, and then you might have it tight at the bottom or vice versa. So if you wanted to fix the trim in order to fix that, check it and do whatever you have to do, but that's not mentioned in the instructions. And something that is mentioned in the instructions that I don't like is this bottom piece. So let me show you why I don't like it. So I'm gonna put the door in like they say. I'm gonna put my hinge side tight over there, and then I'm gonna set this up just like that. So that's gonna help me hold it in place. But the problem is, if you look on the bottom, is this gap. So that's not sitting tight. They used to make these longer and you could cut them so it's nice and tight, but now they give you this, and basically what they tell you to do is get it in here, right? And this other clip is useful. So this hole, you should see the mounting surface. If there's any kind of hole in that hole, then you need to shim the other side. So that is useful. But this one, what they're telling me to do now is, it says that the door may be out of square. So you want to push it tight this way, and they tell you to attach this, then open the door and attach the screws on the inside. But first of all, that hinge isn't going to be tight, and second, this might be out of square. So I'm going to end up taking this off and installing this door the way I want to, the way that I know it's going to be plumb and square and everything. You can follow the instructions, do it that way if you want, but for me, that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to take this out and take that off. But now that I've checked the hinge side, I know that this is pretty good, and we'll just adjust before we put the screws in. Thank you, but no thank you. Okay, now I got that piece off, and put this tight against the hinge side. There we go. Now I am gonna have to hold it up like this. That was one good thing about that, is it pushed it up, but it was also taller than this side, so it messed it all up. Now that I'm holding it, I wanna check it for plumb, like this, and I can drop it down just a little bit, kind of like that. So since it is out this way a little bit, I'll attach the bottom first. But now you can see that that hinge on the bottom is tight, which is nice. I'm gonna use 1-inch painted screws. I'm just gonna check this again. Okay, it might be a little tricky by yourself, but we got it. Double check this, good. And then we can put the rest of the screws in on the outside. Now I can take this out, open the door up, and then on the inside, you're gonna put 1-inch unpainted screws all along here. And since I left this down a little bit, I could sneak a shim in here, but I could also just put the screws in just snug, which is probably what I'll do. I'll start at the bottom and I can put them tight. In the instructions, it says use unpainted. I'm trying to tell you everything it says in the instructions, but if it was up to me, I would have done painted here and then unpainted on the outside since they get covered up. That's okay. You're never gonna see these unless you're looking for them. I'm gonna go through that shim and into that, nice and tight. Pre-drill this if you want. Now I'm gonna install the rain cap. It looks like this. Open the door and it basically goes in here like this, and shut the door. Don't worry if there's a big gap here. I'll show you what to do with that. And we're basically gonna try and make this gap right here even. So on this side, I want this tight down to this rail and even this way. So this is flush. So I can hold it there, I use my 1-inch painted screws and attach this side. And then again, just want this to be even. So I'm gonna hold that up to where it's even, put a screw on this side. Now if you look at the center hole right here, if you have mounting material, you can put another screw in there, but like with ours, we don't have anything to mount to, so I'm gonna need to add the rain cap extender. So first, I'm gonna plug that with a cap that's provided. Now the rain cap extender, go like this, and just make sure it kind of sits in that channel. Make sure it's even on both ends. I'm gonna start with the middle screw. 1-inch painted screws. I'm gonna take these 3 foam spacers. They have a sticky back. I'm gonna open the door, put one at the top, this right in the center, and then towards the middle of the door, put one right here, one right at the bottom. Just like that. Now you should be able to take your latch rail and put it tight up against here, and then it should go right in, but with mine, it is a little long. Maybe that's because I didn't follow the instructions. I took that little orange block out, and you know, it would have had a gap over here too. All I'm gonna do, it just barely doesn't fit, but this is something to keep in mind if you don't follow the instructions like me. So I'm gonna take a file, and since the threshold is at an angle anyways, I'm just gonna file this down just a little bit at an angle, kind of like this. Really don't have to take off much, so. Okay, should fit now. Let's see. Oh yeah, perfect, nice and tight. Now, I want to push that rail tight this way so that it doesn't knock off these foam pieces. And you close the door, and those foam pieces are basically a guide to where you're gonna have your spacing. So you're gonna hold this tight against there, and then put your screws in. We're gonna check them all. Middle here, it's gonna be like that. Don't crush the foam, just hold them tight to it. And the bottom. Like that. And now we can put those screws in. Start at the top. Again, make sure this is tight to the top, to the rain cap. 1-inch painted screws again. And then fill in the screws in between, just making sure that that gap is even, because this can move around a little bit. Now you can open the door, and those foam pieces are probably gonna fall off. You just throw those away. And then we're gonna install the window handle. Now I have the door opened all the way, just so I can push it against the house here. And the handle goes like this. These are the screws that comes with it. And I'm actually just gonna wiggle it around, find the hole, and use a hand screwdriver so I don't mess anything up. You may have to use a little bit of force, but be careful. It is glass. And you do this side, wiggle it around till it drops in there, and screw it in. There we go. That's a cool feature. I like it. So we don't need these anymore. Now for the handle install. You do have to drill these holes, but that's okay. Comes with a template, and you're just gonna take this, and it even says, align with slot and door and mark top of template on door edge. So I'm gonna hold this like this to where it matches up right here, and then mark a line on the top here, and then I'm gonna fold it like this around, and I'm gonna tape this in place. So I'm gonna start by punching each of these holes. I have a nail set, and I'm just gonna go right in the center and give it a little tap. That will guide my drill bit. And if I wanted to take this template off, I would know where these holes need to be drilled. I'm gonna start out with an 1/8" drill bit, and then I can step up to the bigger sizes here. And just wanna get through the metal. My drill bit's a little warped. A little bit. I'm gonna take this template off now that I have the holes where they need to be. I'm just gonna definitely make sure to drill the correct sizes. 1/2 inch, 3/4, 3/4, 1/2 inch. I'm gonna start with the 1/2 inch here, and I only wanna go through about halfway. I definitely don't wanna go through all the way to the other side, because what can end up happening is this will blow out this metal or create burrs, and I wanna avoid that. So I'm just gonna carefully do about half. And then I slowed down towards the end because this can catch on the wood and pull it right through. So there's one. Now the other side. See, it caught on the wood. Went a little too fast. So now I'm just gonna very carefully see if I can get through. And I can tell that I went through there. The hole is a little off, but that's okay. Just clean all this up. Well, those holes are actually kind of far off, but you do have some play with the handle. Hopefully it all works out. I don't know what happened with the template, but thought I did it right. Do this one, line those two holes up. Okay, now 3/4. Woo! Go backwards. Woo! Oh, yeah, that caught. Luckily it didn't do any damage over here, but you see that? That's why you gotta be careful. Let's go backwards. We can take the styrofoam out. They tell you to leave it in there for proper support while drilling. So these burrs right here, they're kind of sticking out. So that's gonna mess up this plate. So I just wanna very carefully tap them in there so they at least sit flat or they're inset a little bit. Just take a hammer, go around and try not to miss. So here is the latch. It goes like this, up like that. This right here is already set up for a right-hand swing door, which is what this is. But if you needed to change that to a left, you take this screw out, this screw, and then you turn this so it sits just like that, but opposite. Put this piece back, put the screws back in, and then you should be good. But we're good to put it into place, just like that. We're not gonna attach it here yet. We're gonna put this on. Piece goes on the front. You might have to turn this just a little bit, this lock, so it lines up right here. Again, this is off, but it looks like there's plenty of wiggle room. You open it up. Now you want to line this up right here. You're just gonna have to turn that until it sits in there, like that. Then you put these screws in here. Get them started by hand. One there, one there. I'm just going to use a hand screwdriver to tighten it down. This does wiggle around, so you just want to make it even. Make sure that your boo-boo is covered if you made one. Now I can put the handle in. These nylon washers like this. Goes over here, like that. And then this one goes on the inside. Put the nylon washer there, and then goes like that. And just make sure it sets in there, squeeze it tight, and then right here is a little set screw that you have to tighten. So tighten that up. And make sure the one on the outside is tight as well. I'm going to use my 1/8 inch drill bit, drill a hole right here and right here for these screws. I'm just going to hold it tight, make sure it's sitting in there. Like that. And then down here. I'm going to put these small screws in here. So now this lock extends like this, and you want to check on the jamb here. If I close this door and that lock touches this at all, I'm going to want to chisel this out so that it doesn't touch, just for the lock to function properly. If I shut this, that touches the brick molding. So I'm gonna have to chisel that out just a little bit. So I'm just gonna extend this, make a light mark about here and here. That way I know where to chisel on the inside. You could also put some paint or something on here if you wanted to make it perfect, but that should be fine. And I forgot my small chisel. Shh. There we go. Now I can put the striker plate on. I'm gonna put a screw in this little slot here and this one here, and there's already pre-drilled holes. And you use those small screws. Now that we went in those slots, I'll be able to shut the door and lock it, and I'll be able to move this either way to put it in the right place so the door closes properly. Let's see how it shuts. Ooh, did I nail it? I can move it in a little bit to get a little tighter of a seal. So loosen this just a little bit. Let's check that. There we go. That's good. And the lock works. Now that we got it lined up where we want it, we can pre-drill these holes and attach this permanently. Okay, one more time. Let's check it. Perfect. Moving on to the door closer. So their old one was right here. In the instructions, it says to install it at least 2.5 inches up from the bottom. So about right here. And in the instructions, it shows them putting it here. But I've always put them up here. So that's where I'm gonna go a little above where it was before, about right here. So you can do what you want, but this is what I'm gonna do. And this piece right here needs to go like this, but you can see, uh-oh, this weather stripping is gonna give me a problem. So I'm going to hold it where I want it to be, right there, and I am gonna end up cutting this right here. You are probably gonna be able to skip this step. This was a thing they added in afterwards. Boink. Did I have to say boink? And I'm gonna drill a couple holes. And you got these big screws that you put in. You definitely want the long screws because there's a lot of pressure on this and that could end up pulling this right out. Now I'm gonna put this piece on here. I'm gonna pre-drill this one last hole. This hooks in like that. And you put your one last screw in there. This is nice that they do it this way. The old one, that was so close to this that you needed a long extension, but that's why they did this. So you can get in there with the drill. A lot easier. Now I'm gonna grab the short pin and I'm gonna take the closer or the piston, put it in just like this. And then I'm gonna take this orange clip it like that. Acts as a spacer. That's where that should be. Now I'm gonna take the bracket that goes against the door, the long pin, put it right in that hole there. So now I'm gonna hold this closer up so it is about level, kind of like that. And then I'm gonna pre-drill 2 holes right in here, just through the metal. And then you have these really thick screws. Okay. That could shut a little harder. Let's open it way up. Yeah, that needs less. So you can grab this right here. It has Phillips on this side, but you should be able to just do this by hand. Loosen this up a little bit. Adjust it. Whoa, a little too much. Let's try that. That's perfect. We want it to shut hard enough that it locks in with the latch, but not so hard that it breaks anything. So that's good. And I think the idea behind putting this down here is so that you could use your foot to do it, which makes sense on the inside, but when you use this, it's on the outside. So I would much rather not do this and just do this. So I think that's gonna work better. And then to unlock it, you just push the door open and shut it. At this point, you could loosen these screws and adjust your bottom door seal, but this is good where it is. So I'm gonna install this, what's called an edge seal. It gets attached to the side of the door like this, and then it seals up this right here. But on the bottom, what they recommend doing is rounding this over, at least getting the sharp edges off of this, because if you see, you know, where it's gonna be, as you open that and you can see where my leg would be, that would not be a good combination. So I'm just gonna make it so it's less likely to hurt somebody and just clean it up a little bit. So this does get attached right here, but I think what they're thinking, and this sits kind of flush against the door, but if this ends up getting bent out, I think that's where the problem would lie. So we're just gonna make sure that's not super sharp. I'm gonna open the door up, and there's gonna be these screws, 4 of them on the side of the door. I'm just gonna take those out. Use your extension. Now this is gonna go just like this. I wanna line the first hole up from the top, and I do the 1-inch painted screws. And then I'm gonna make sure that this is sitting in this track, and then pre-drill the rest of them. I can put all those 1-inch screws in. See how that works? Nice. That's gonna snug up against that. Final stretch. We're gonna put these covers in that go along here, and they cover the screws. So you can see that one of these sides is tighter to the trim. We're gonna wanna snap this in to that side first. You can see it rained. This is a little wet. And then when you lock that in or get that set in that side, then you can push on the other side and snap it into place. And just do that. Work your way all the way down. Try not to pull it like this as you work your way down. It may take a little effort to get these in there. Try and take this sticker off without making a mess. Nice. And make sure the key works, and it does. And that is a brand new Andersen 400 series storm door installed. And I gotta say, it looks a lot better than what was here before. If you needed to do this or something similar, I hope the video helps. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. I have 80 and 5/8. Eighths. That's why I say eighths. So could you see yourself?
Now again.
Okay. So my hinge side, I'm gonna go home, and we can peel off the other side if we can. Hold on. Wow. Wow. You serious? These are the worst. Didn't think this would be hard. Lauren, why is this so hard? Ridiculous. Now we're done. Let's go home. You also don't need this little foam piece here. Take that off if you can. Now for the door sweep, I'm gonna add this door sweep fin, this slide sweep fin. Yep. Slide sweep. Oh no, slide. That's saying slide the sweep fin in. Flathead? No, they're not. Well, technically they are. Whatever. Cut that out. So, I know.
Sorry.
I'm gonna use 1-inch painted screws. You can also pre-drill these if you want. I'm gonna try not to. Dropping my screw. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah. It is the bit and the screw. Here we go. My back is gonna be smoked after this. Going lefty, don't miss. Oh. Again, pre-drill if you want. I'm being risky. A little too risky. Could you grab that for me? You need a battery, Lauren. Yeah, because there's glass and I don't want to mess anything up. Find that hole. There we go. This shouldn't be the hard part.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why would you pick those two?
To put it in the right place so the door closes properly. That's why, Lauren. Is that a widow ant? What is it? It's so small. It's a widow ant. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you can get all notifications of home repair content.